You're listening to the Feastcast Network.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pop Goes the Academy. I'm Sean Ahern.
And I'm Corrigan Vaughn.
Hello, Corrigan. How's sunny California these days?
You know, it's great. I'm here in Los Angeles right now for E3. Well, currently I'm sitting in a Hojo's, but I was at the LA Convention Center today to see the opening festivities, and let me tell you, it is wild in there.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, that's surprising, right? A big convention, you know, largest gaming convention around, and people get a little insane. That's to be expected, I guess, right?
Right, and I guess today we're going to talk a little bit about what you saw today at E3, talk about what some of our writers have said at E3, or about E3, and some of the big announcements. Obviously, the biggest announcement, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. So,
Yeah.
big news there. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the video games, some of the stuff Corrigan saw. And we're going to talk a little bit about nostalgia in video games. And we're going to talk a little bit about, what else do we say we're going to talk about there?
We're going to talk a little bit about Fast and the Furious 6.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing I was trying to think about, yeah. So,
yeah, which I think,
race,
yeah.
and cultural identity, and all those fun things.
Yeah, I mean, given the amount of racing games and everything that we're seeing at E3 today and hearing about, I think Fast and Furious is a pretty natural progression from there.
Awesome. Fantastic.
It's all about nice cars.
It is.
All that.
So yeah, I guess let's just start off. Corrigan, how was E3 today? How was E3?
Yeah, E3 is a blast, but I'll tell you, it's really something. I've said before in our Xbox One roundtable and even I think a little bit in our last podcast that I'm not really a serious gamer. I come from a family of them, but I'm the black sheep. So my idea of a good time is really playing Just Dance. And I did get to see the Just Dance 2014 display today where you could actually dance with a couple of dancers and make a fool of yourself in front of everybody in the Nintendo tent. So that was a lot of fun. But really, everybody was pulling out all the stops. The displays were huge, and they were giving away a ton of stuff to all the important people with the nice badges and everything. Let me tell you something. E3 is a well-dressed convention.
Well-dressed.
Yeah, very well dressed. You got a lot of these executives and power people there. It's a big networking convention.
Very professional.
Yeah, you see a lot of tailored suits and button-ups and all that kind of stuff, and women in dresses, and it's a very different vibe than when you go to Comic-Con. Nobody's cosplaying here except for the people who, work for the booths. So that was kind of an interesting thing for me, but, it's interesting to go to a con that has that focus more on industry as opposed to fandom, because it's pretty laid back. People just want to come in and try out all the demos of all the games, and they have that available, and you don't really have to. I mean, some of the lines were unbelievable, especially one of the long ones for Nintendo DS. That line had to have been a good hour long to get like a little bit of play in on the DS. But for the most part, it's a very sort of laid-back function with very few, of the rabble coming in.
Wow.
And, people like us aren't really supposed to be there. And, it was interesting to see all these, very non-stereotypical sort of gamer people, but with a lot of knowledge of the gaming industry. When you walk by, like, two guys in suits and they're, discussing what Xbox has coming out, what PS4 is looking like, all that kind of stuff. It definitely kind of throws you off for a second. But it's looking interesting. It's looking exciting. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out. For me, I'm pretty excited about Wolfenstein. You've seen that trailer, right, Sean?
Wolfenstein's fantastic. For those of you who were born in 1994, Wolfenstein is a fantastic first-person shooter, PC, specifically PC. Another, I believe, also ported to the Super NES. I could be wrong. Don't quote me there. But PC is where I played it.
Yep.
Game about killing Nazis, just like Inglourious Basterds.
Yep.
Decades before, actually.
Yeah. Scarier too. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Wolfenstein probably is going to be the reason that I die at 40. Because it was the most stressful game. Do you remember that? All of a sudden it'd be dogs coming out and barking at you and people coming around corners. It's terrifying.
And everybody looks to Doom as the scariest game. No, yeah. And the trailer looks brilliant. I mean, there was a little bit of controversy, as
oh boy,
would say, over when it was published. Because for those who haven't seen the trailer, it is a recreation of history if Hitler and the Nazis had won the war. And it's pretty bleak.
Yes.
Does not,
very impressive visually.
Very impressive. But still very scary. And of course, the new Wolfenstein is about going out and kicking Nazi butt for the resistance. Fighting back, as it were. Looks pretty awesome. Bethesda's behind it, so you know it's going to be good. But the controversy that came from it was because it was put out, I believe, on the anniversary of D-Day. Hold on a sec.
Yeah, it's always a good idea.
I have to make sure that I'm correct. It was, they didn't realize it was they're saying that, this is on Kotaku.
They're saying they didn't realize it was D-Day.
Well, I'm just going to pull up, just to make sure it's not Bethesda, but actually something else.
Okay.
Yeah, Bethesda marketing said that. Pete Hines is the VP. It was not intentional. So, but a little bit of controversy.
Do you buy that? Do you buy that wasn't intentional, or do you think that they're oh crap, that didn't land the way we wanted it to?
Knowing Bethesda, I don't know. I mean, they've made a name for themselves with lovely bleak games Out and such. So I don't know. I'm gonna say they knew it. It just didn't go the way it was planned. I mean, if you're right.
I mean, it seems in a sense that would be, morbidly appropriate to release that on D-Day. If that was. I think that's almost too much of a coincidence. Here's our World War II game or World War II alternate history coming out on D-Day, and then to say, oops, who knew? I mean, look at your calendar. It's written in little letters on the bottom. So, I don't know. Maybe it was a bad publicity stunt.
This is what Pete Hines said, and he's a VP of marketing for Bethesda. And this is quoted in a statement to Kotaku. It was not intentional. It was actually supposed to be released yesterday, but some last-minute things pushed the release to today. We didn't realize it was the D-Day anniversary. It was simply the Thursday before E3. So it was released last week. We have the ultimate respect for men and women who served their countries on that day and every day since. This game has nothing to do with their history. This is an alternative universe and timeline. Anyone suggesting we intentionally released a trailer today to make some kind of statement or wanted to take advantage of the D-Day anniversary as a promotional opportunity is simply wrong. It's pure coincidence, nothing more. So make of it as you will.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand on the opposing side of Corrigan and say they didn't realize. In itself is sad. It's interesting. Nonetheless, the game looks amazing. First-person shooter.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of Fallout, so anything Bethesda does is going to be great. Obviously, they're very intricate. I want to say they're very methodical when they create worlds. So that was interesting.
I will say it was a bit startling. I could see a lot of people doing double and triple takes when all of a sudden on this huge screen in the middle of E3, there's Adolf Hitler in a propaganda film, as is in the trailer for Wolfenstein. So all of a sudden you have this big Hitler up, and people are like, "What is that?" So as an attention grabber, that worked out great. But it could have potentially been offensive. That's for sure. So.
Yeah. Outside of Wolfenstein, there's some other fantastic things coming out on Microsoft stable. Metal Gear Solid 5, as reported by Morgan Kent of Electric Feast. We got Metal Gear Solid 5. We've got Rise, Dead Rising 3, Forza, and an oldie but a goodie, Killer Instinct is coming back which would be great.
Indeed it is.
In Sony's stable, though, at the same time, we see stuff like Final Fantasy 15. And as a guy who's replaying Final Fantasy 6 right now, that would be nice.
Wow.
We have The Last of Us coming out, which would be interesting. And then, of course, the one that I think got the internet rustled a lot, Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming to PlayStation 4. For those of you who don't know.
And what's the internet saying about it? What's the
I believe they had the quote I got from the internet was squee. For those of you who don't know what Kingdom Hearts series is, basically it's Disney and SquareSoft coming together to create a fantastic RPG. The SquareSoft part pulls a lot from their annals of the Final Fantasy series, Cloud, Sephiroth. You got your classic RPG guys there. I believe Locke from Final Fantasy 6 is actually in it too. Eris is in it. Squall is in it for Final Fantasy 6. Two great games that came out. Probably about 6 years from now, 2006, I think is about right. Yeah.
That sounds about right.
So we got Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out, which is going to be brilliant. I think that's going to really push people to the PS4. I mean, come on.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of gamers are going to go for that. Definitely. I'm still holding out for a Final Fantasy 7 remake.
That's a classic for sure.
Yes, instant classic. So yeah, there's some interesting stuff, as Morgan has pointed out. Some great stuff coming out. We have some prices too for the Xbox One. It's going to be going for $499 US, $429 in sterling in England, and euro it's going for $499 also, which means if you're a traveler to Europe, this time would be a good time to go because it looks like the dollar and the euro are equal. So, if, €4.99 and $4.99, that's pretty equal. So, just pointing that out.
That's a very good point.
Yeah.
I very rarely understand those currency conversions, but yeah, I guess that's good news.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so we have this coming out at $4.99, which seems like a pretty good price. I think, they avoided going over that 500 mark, which I think is a scary number for people. So they did that, but then we have PS4 coming in, and apparently that's going for $3.99.
It's going to be great. For those that was a smooth move by Sony.
Yeah.
As I've said in the roundtable, for those of you who saw it, Microsoft has a lot of issues coming up with Xbox One. You can't trade games amongst your friends. You have to be connected to the internet, even for single-player games. That's an issue that our writer Morgan Kent has a beef with, and I think a lot of people do. And it's not very user-friendly in that way. It's very anti-community.
Mm-hmm.
And Sony called them on it. And so, they made a good point to mention that you can trade games on disc. You can do this. You can do that. And then they dropped the dollars down a good $100. So
does this bring us back to this whole console war thing, though? If we're gonna talk about this, I mean, is this even something we should really be? Does it matter that the PS4 is $3.99 and?
Yeah. BuzzFeed had a great article out earlier today talking about how we shouldn't be bringing back the console wars. And I think the price differentials are, again, I said this in the roundtable, it's not a fight. I mean, past Great Britain, Sony owns everything.
Mm-hmm.
Microsoft can lose money on the Xbox One and still be Microsoft.
Right.
So, Sony's putting a lot more action into this because this is their console. This is their big thing. Not to say Sony doesn't do other things. It doesn't have other chickens in other baskets. Is that the saying? But they have other things going on.
Is that a thing? Did you just
I don't know.
Up?
Maybe I just made that up. Basically, the idea.
What are the chickens doing in baskets? I don't know.
Making Spider-Man movies. But no, I mean it's they've got other things going on too. But I think Sony has always been into the gaming culture since they came out in the 90s with PlayStation. So PlayStation was good. Yeah.
As a gamer,
I don't think console war.
Yeah. Is this a thing that gamers do? Do they say like, oh, am I going to get the PS4? Am I going to get Xbox One? Is that actually a choice that they're making, or are they just different things?
Well, again, I've said this before. I'll stick to my guns. It's two different things. They're not in direct competition with each other. They have their own brands, like I just said. Final Fantasy, come into the Xbox. Come to PlayStation 4.
Whoa.
Come to PlayStation 4. You've got Final Fantasy on PlayStation 4. You've got Kingdom Hearts on PlayStation 4. But then you've got Killer Instinct. You've got Forza. You've got Metal Gear on Xbox, right? You've got there are two camps. There are two sets of third-party developers that are going to be developing things for these different formats. Yes, they may come across for things like sporting games or more popular titles, of course. But at the end of the day, is it really a console war? I would say no. There are people in the Xbox camp and there are people in the Sony camp who will fight and say otherwise. But I don't want a console war. I don't.
Okay. Are you going to buy one?
Bit era. What? Sorry.
Are you going to buy one? One of the two consoles?
Well, Corrigan, as a man living on student loans,
oh yeah, that's a good point.
I would probably, for a cheaper option, I'd probably go with PlayStation. I mean, my family has had since the Super NES, which, if you read the BuzzFeed article, apparently, if you were a teenager, you weren't supposed to like Super NES because you were supposed to like Genesis because it was like extreme and like Mortal Kombat on that system was uncensored, and on Super NES it was censored because it was a family-friendly console. I don't know how much I buy that, but I, for one, had a Super NES, and then I had an N64. Then I grabbed the PlayStation.
Right.
And yeah, I think I would go with the PlayStation 4. I have an Xbox right now, and I'm probably going to buy NHL 14 Force at Xbox, and let's hope
right.
cover for that. But I digress. I can't talk hockey with Corrigan. She doesn't know it.
You can talk it. You just have to know that I have no idea what you're talking about. That's all.
But no, I think I'm gonna be on Xbox Live for a little longer before I get a PlayStation 4, and I think that they know that of their consumer demographic, that this isn't gonna really hit till Christmas. I think. I mean, they're saying it now because be real. What are the launch dates, Corrigan? Do you know those? Did you see a lot?
They didn't announce them yesterday. I don't know if they have since then. I have not seen it, so I can look into that as well. But yeah, I'm sure Christmas is always the big time for these consoles, isn't it? I remember even when Wii came out for the first time, it was like once Black Friday hit or whatever, you could not get one until the holidays were over, and there were waiting lists, and it was just absolute mayhem.
And yeah, I think that's another thing that I use Microsoft for all of my products, for all of my word processing and PowerPoint consumption. But this is the things that I heard about Microsoft I don't like. I don't like the idea that you can't really share. You always have to be online. For a guy, Gordon, talked about this. I don't have internet at my apartment at the moment.
I know, and that drives me absolutely crazy.
I know. Well, but it's something that's very painful. Like, if I can't play a single-player game without being on the internet, I feel like that's a money grab. I think that's something where they can say, oh, well, we have some DLC for this game. Isn't that great? Like, no, it's not.
Right. And by the way, it's going to be released in November, so exactly Christmas season. Right. Xbox One, I should say.
Xbox One is it. So I have some issues with it. I have a lot of my family members who are very into Xbox. They're Halo guys, so they're going to stay there. I'm going to go back to PlayStation, though. I liked PlayStation 1 when it came out. I got the classy PlayStation 1, right before they released PlayStation 2. It was a smaller, compact one.
Oh, yes, I have seen those. Okay, I do remember those upscale PlayStations.
Yeah, and I liked it. And my sister loved the PlayStation 2, basically for Guitar Hero, but...
So she's like me, give me something with music that I can play or dance along to. And
there's some great games on that, too. So I look forward to it. I look forward to 13-year-olds beating me in hockey games and laughing at me as the Penguins or the Kings or something.
Yes.
But, again, I'm also, we're academics, right, Corrigan? So how much time do I have for entertainment? That's the end of the day. But no, I look forward to it. I like the titles that I've seen so far. PlayStation 4 won me when they said Kingdom Hearts 3. I'm not a Kingdom Hearts guy, but I know that to be a good series. I know friends who have Keyblades that they've made themselves. Love the series. I've seen some of the fanfic for the series on the Tumblr.
Oh, wow.
On the internet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that there's a good fandom that's been waiting. It's kind of like if Supernatural said, like, hey, we're going to make a new video game.
Oh,
or,
gosh.
like, make a new series. And it's only going to be on this one network, you know, like, I mean, it is already on one network, but like.
Yeah, I think that's how it works, John.
But it's kind of like if Supernatural was like, hey, we're going to HBO. Like, it's kind of like, you know, so, you know, it'll be interesting.
Definitely. You know, did you get a chance to watch any of the Microsoft press conference?
I did. I have to mention something aesthetically that I don't like about the press conferences.
Oh, okay, yeah.
An aesthetic thing, and it's something that I think people like other sites like Voting Ready Run have pointed out. I cannot get behind watching somebody play a video game on a large screen. When you see like somebody's talking about the game, and then you have who's playing the game, and I just like you know, I'm like, you know, like come on, like at least like make a video of it before.
Okay.
Because I know it's their way of saying like, hey, look at this how the controller functions. This is how like the game is played. But the first time they did that, it was kind of a way to show the wireless controller, and that was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm. Well, they did showcase with this one they wanted to showcase the upload thing. What do they call that in the Upload Studio?
Yeah.
In Xbox One, and show, you know, okay, here's how we do the match, finding you a match to play against. Mm-hmm. Here's how, you know, you can then upload it. Here's how you can stream it. So I don't know if making a video of it would have had that same. Yeah. And we got to see the two people fake trash talk each other, which was that was entertaining.
Yeah, no, I think that, but that goes back to my whole issue with like having to be on the internet to play video games. Like, I don't want to be on the internet to play video games.
Right, like you don't need an internet match or whatever, you know.
I'm an introvert for a reason, and that is because of video games.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it reminds me of a lot of the same. I mean, we talked about Command and Conquer on the last podcast. We talked about Red Alert. I liked when they did that when EA did that for Command and Conquer 3 and for Red Alert, like how they set up matches so that you're not getting beat by somebody from Korea every day. You're getting set up with somebody who's on your same level. So I kind of like that. But yeah, no, I mean, it's interesting. I look forward to it. But again, PS4, the internet told us that PS4 in GIF form destroyed Xbox.
GIF, man, GIF. Didn't you?
It's GIF.
It's GIF. Didn't you hear that whole controversy like 2 weeks ago?
I missed it. Darn.
Well, yeah. See, and I've been saying this for years. The people who created the GIF call it a GIF, so it's a GIF. And then last week on Twitter, GIF was trending because once again they reiterated that it is supposed to be with the soft G. So learn it and love it, Sean. Learn it and love it. It's GIF, like the peanut butter.
Okay.
Just flows better. It sounds better. Anyways, but in the Microsoft conference, and see, I think this is, you know, this is the non-gamer person here where you've got all this excitement about PS4 and what's coming out for it. And the Xbox One, I mean, some of that stuff looks so cool. For one thing, I loved the Max Curse of Brotherhood.
Yes.
That looked awesome. It basically looked like Labyrinth in video game form. Like somehow he gets rid of his brother and has to go on a quest to find him. I thought that looked like so much fun and a classic adventure. It made me want to go like full Guybrush Threepwood, you know, LucasArts, old Monkey Island games.
Oh, nice. Nicely done.
Yeah, like that. It definitely had that sort of feel to it, but with amazing graphics and awesomeness. And then, I mean, I was floored by Quantum Break.
Yes. Yes.
Is that what it's called? Quantum Break. I think that's such a fascinating concept, and I'm a huge TV person as well. And so I'm intrigued by this idea of a TV show that's a companion to the game, but that your game choices affect the TV show, and that the TV show then informs certain elements of the game for you. I just think that's some crazy convergence. That sounds awesome, and I thought that little trailer that they showed was intriguing, and I wanted to just like watch it like a movie. So, which is how I do. What's the game with Rapture? It takes place BioShock.
BioShock, yes.
Yeah, I'm too terrified to play it myself, so I make other people play it, and I like go over my face and watch. those kinds of games I love that are just like so visually stunning and have such good stories that watching someone play it is just as enjoyable as, you know, actually playing it yourself, or more so for someone like me, because I just get killed every 5 minutes every time I turn on a game of any kind.
I feel like Marshall McLuhan is rolling in his grave. Turns into media. Oh, the media's the message. What's the media? Ah!
Yeah. I'll grant you that. But
yeah.
I don't know. I thought that seemed like a fascinating thing, and I mean, everything that they really showed up there was pretty visually stunning. I mean, Rise, that looked, Son of Rome. That looked really interesting and intriguing, like something I'd watch. Yeah, I think they had some really interesting stuff that they put up at that press conference that crossed over from things that might just, like, I think they did a great job of assuring gamers that, hey, this thing's about games. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But also showing non-gamers how freaking awesome this thing is going to look, and, you know, some of the cool capabilities of it, and I can't think of what it's called right now, the thing where you can make your own game. Do you remember what that was called? Project something?
Oh, dear. Okay, hold on. 1 second.
I'm making Sean work overtime today on the Googling. But essentially, you know, you can build your own game, build your own environment, you know, do all the topography and your goals and all that kind of stuff, and share it and, you know, play a game that you've created. And
Project Spark, I believe.
Project Spark.
Yes,
that's the one. I think, you know, they're doing some really interesting and innovative things with Xbox One that I think, you know, they excite me.
Mm-hmm.
As a non-gamer, but as someone who's kind of open to good media, just in general.
True. I can only confess that I am a guy who plays RPGs and then plays sports games like an RPG.
Yeah.
Which in itself is a problem. But
I haven't played a sports game since NBA Jam. So.
Oh, he's getting hot. He's on fire.
That was the best game ever.
But yeah, no, I think I mean, I for one, well, I guess it's something we can get into. We were talking about it a little bit. You mentioned that, to me at least, you mentioned that there's a lot of nostalgia at E3.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are whole displays of, you know, Ataris and original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, all those old consoles that, you know, some you've just missed and some you haven't thought about in years. And, you know, all these people gathering around and playing them. There's these arcade games that you can play in there, this real classic stuff. And you see a lot of these gamers gathering around this stuff from their youth, which is, you know, kind of interesting to see. You've got all this new stuff and there's great graphics, and these people are gathered around like these 8-bit games and, you know, Galaga and Punch-Out and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see that section of E3, this nostalgia section, if you will. It's all kind of gathered in one area. Yeah, and you had written recently about nostalgia in video games, so I thought that was kind of apt.
Yeah, I wrote a little bit about my season I'm having on NHL 96 for the Super NES. Update, I'm in November. I'm leading the Atlantic Division with the New Jersey Devils. I have both the Niedermeyers on my team, and I just implanted the classic check line of Holick, Randy McKay, and Mike Peluso as my check line, but that's neither here nor there. My article really looks at just this idea that we, as sports fans, we look at these sport games as a way to either, for teams like the Leafs or the Buffalo Bills, to win a Super Bowl or a Stanley Cup. As a fan, to actually be able to do that, to rise to the occasion and have that. But for those of us who are part of fan bases who have won Stanley Cups, like the New Jersey Devils in the 90s and the 2000s, just gotta point that out. It's a way to look back at what your team once was, as you see people like Martin Brodeur, who I must admit I adore. He's the only goalie I've ever known. Goes into probably what's going to be his final year next year. and hopefully, well, sadly, will retire.
I couldn't decide just now if I wanted to hum Pomp and Circumstance or Taps.
No, don't do either, because Marty's around at least for one more season, damn it. But, no, it's this idea of looking back at your prime. I mean, looking back and going, oh my God, there's Scott Stevens knocking somebody out. Oh my God, there's Claude Lemieux being able to shoot. Or, hey, look at Marty, he's just stopping pucks. Just stopping pucks. And it's a virtual version, but it's a way of looking back and saying, wow, when I was 7, the Devils won the Stanley Cup over the Red Wings in a 4-game sweep, and then being able to go through the 90s and play the same Super NES games and look at the rankings of your team and go, oh yeah, we're number 1 in goaltending. Huh, we have a 17th ranked penalty kill. Wow, surprise, So it's really interesting for me at least, to look at nostalgia. And nostalgia is dangerous, and that's something that NHL has had for a very long time. Their big motto is old time hockey, right? I mean, they sell memorabilia for teams that no longer exist. Teams that they have
really?
moved. Oh yeah, like the Hartford Whalers are now the Carolina Hurricanes. But they have old time hockey shirts with them. And this is a team that you could play taps for. The Nordiques. I almost went French Canadian there. Sorry. Quebec Nordiques, Viva Nordiques. They of course became the Colorado Avalanche, and of course, right? For those who know our sports history, and you get to play, and it's a way of, if you're a fan in a game, you can go, oh, well, there's the Nordiques, there's the team I knew, or there's the Jets before they left for Arizona. And NHL lives on that. I mean, NHL lives on that nostalgia of, the original 6, the Rangers, the Red Wings, the Leafs, the Habs, the Blackhawks. Yeah, the original 6, but
how many teams are there now?
32.
Oh, that's a lot more than 6.
32, yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, there are, because I always get NFL and NHL messed up with the amount of teams, because I only watch the Atlantic Division and the Southeast Pacific divisions. So I just want to make sure before I say something stupid.
Yeah.
I know everything about NHL. There's only 30 teams. Yeah.
I don't know. I was impressed.
There are 30 franchise member clubs. Sorry, 30. 30. Clubs.
Okay.
30 clubs. I got ahead of myself because I always hear rumors that the Nordiques are coming back and the Whale is coming back, or somebody's moving to Canada. So that's why I said that. My apologies. 30
I'll
teams.
Never forgive you for this, Sean.
30 teams, 23 of which are in the U.S. 7 are in Canada. So
that's interesting.
But the national in that league is Canada. Don't ever be forgotten. Anyway, point being, nostalgia, this idea of looking at old video games, be it Dragon's Quest, Dragon's Lair, sorry, or Dragon's Quest, but Dragon's Lair, or Zelda, or be a sports game like Madden or NHL, or Temco Bowl, is a way of looking back at your childhood, way of looking back at a simpler time as a fan in some ways.
Right.
So I think that's really interesting that at E3 you have all these old coin-operated games.
Mm-hmm.
Being like, look at how far we've come, but you still want to play Galaga, over watching the Wolfenstein trailer,
Yeah. Of course, for me, most of the appeal in those nostalgic games, aside from being like, I used to spend hours in my grandma's basement playing this, is just that you can only go one direction or kind of move forward, and there's limited spatial issues, and so I can pretty much play those ones. I'm not great with anything where you can go more than one direction, like all those first-person shooters and whatnot. It's just, does Duck Hunt count as a first-person shooter? Because that's about the only one I can do.
Is it a first? I don't know. That's an interesting question. Is Duck Hunt a first-person shooter? I would say yes.
The original.
I would say it's, probably one of the originals. No, I think it's interesting when you play something like GoldenEye on 64.
Yeah.
That's what this generation is. That's their nostalgia. Being like, oh my God, remember playing Diddy Kong Racing? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think I think it's something interesting to look at when you look at GoldenEye. You're like, oh man, these mechanics suck. But at the time, you were like, these are the greatest things ever.
They'll never move past this.
This is great. And then you play Gears of War, and you're like, oh my god, I just ripped a man's face off,
Which, by the way, the violent video games are just like insanity right now. I mean, from the stuff that was released in the press conferences and things that you're like seeing all over the floor of E3, I mean, there's just so much like headshots, decapitations, slicing people in half. Like, for me, I get a little queasy, and the violence in the video games is something I don't think we could have fathomed back when like Mortal Kombat was like the most graphic thing we could possibly imagine.
True. Especially
the special deaths, the special fatalities.
If you watch Mortal Kombat now, the deaths are so gruesome it's almost comedic.
Right, when someone's like spine is hanging out of their head, or
and just everything about it. You're just like, oh god,
yeah.
But I mean,
I always assumed they were meant to be kind of funny.
Yeah, in a really gross kind of B-movie way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think that's a very conservative, analysis of popular culture, right? I mean, the conservative issues with popular culture,
right,
is that it is violence and it perpetuates violence, right? And the liberal is that it makes us all slaves to media.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, that's a very, very apt point, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting to observe, just to see the kind of level of violence in these games and everything. I don't know, it's hard to say what that's doing to people one way or another. Whether it's more of a catharsis or if it's just mindless entertainment or if it's, causing violence or anything like that, which I think I would stop short of ever really saying that. But, it's interesting to see. I think for me, more along the lines of, like, what people can handle, because I feel like coming from, like, there's kind of less of this, like, I mean, your graphics could only show you so much, right, in the 90s, in terms of gore and all that kind of stuff, and to see, like, in the era of, like, Walking Dead and really graphic television, really graphic video games and stuff, I feel like I'm like sitting here like about to dry heave while like kids are like, no big deal, it's fine. Like, less of a value judgment as much like more of a like, wow, you can really get used to things. Which is it's interesting. For
Ray
better
Bradbury
or
wrote a lovely short story about that.
Oh really?
Yeah, I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but it's basically the idea that virtual reality comes so real that a family is killed by the lions on safari that are in their virtual reality television. I believe that's how it goes.
Whoa, yeah.
Very Ray Bradbury.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I could be wrong. Some literary critics can be like, no, you're completely wrong about the summation of that story. But
your literary critic sounds kind of like comic book guy from.
Well, I got Adorno the other day about comic books, but that's for another time.
Okay, we'll return to that then.
Adorno, grumpy Adorno, Grumpy Cat and Adorno would get along.
I think so. That we should make that our own personal meme for our site.
But those are all later dates. But yeah, no, I think it's what we were talking about. We were talking about something important. Violence video games.
Getting to it.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting. Just babies on spikes and blood fountains in video games these days.
Yeah.
And how that's okay.
That's some weird stuff.
I mean, but at the same time, I mean, it's very fantastical when you have something like a chainsaw gun being through someone's body, right?
Right.
It's pretty impossible.
Yeah.
But no, I do look forward to what's going there. I think nostalgia in video games is interesting too, seeing that at E3. I think you see that at PAX a lot too.
Definitely. Well, I mean, and even Wolfenstein itself, that's nostalgic.
Yeah.
I mean,
totally.
That's geared towards, as much as it looks like a really cool game that, anyone would want to play, it's obviously geared towards those of us who had it on a floppy disk, back in the day and, want to revisit that. So, I think nostalgia is fueling a lot of the media. Not just video games, but I mean, obviously look at movies and television just remaking things that we liked when we were younger. And look at the success of BuzzFeed. I mean, what is BuzzFeed but basically, a 90s kid's nostalgic paradise? You know?
That's true. That's very true. BuzzFeed lives off of that. What's your favorite boy band, for the record?
Mine?
I don't like anything else but NSYNC, or I get beat up by my sister.
Oh, man. No.
She was a Justin guy. She was a Justin gal.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I like NSYNC and everything, but I was Backstreet Boys and 98 Degrees mostly.
Okay.
So we weren't allowed to I wasn't allowed to admit that I was into NSYNC at the time because you were supposed to be one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
So I just secretly listened to them in my room.
The Crips or the Bloods?
I think it's close. I think the rivalry is pretty intense. So we have symbols, but we're not allowed to talk about them.
But yeah, I think that's a good point about the nostalgia in popular culture, right? I mean, it's just and as a former professor of mine used to say, it's kind of like the golden era. I mean, that's the best way to explain it. Like, if you think about like our parents saying, "Oh, the 1950s, it was such a good time." Well, yeah, because you're like 5. You know,
right?
You know,
exactly.
That's how we feel about the 90s. Like, 90s were great. It was because we didn't do anything.
Right. There's no concept of what greater issues there were, and of course, and that also comes from being middle class-esque.
Yeah.
At least, and not dealing with things the way that some poor kid from New Orleans or something would have dealt with the 90s. I think it's easy when your childhood was awesome and cool and all you did was play Nintendo and all that kind of stuff to think man, I want this. Of course I want to do that. I don't want to work all day. I don't want to write papers. I don't want to have to make money. I just want to make my bed and get a quarter to go to CVS and buy a lollipop. That's all I want in the world. So of course that's going to seem better. And I think pop culture transports us to those times, and we kind of make all those associations with those, those days in which we had no responsibilities and life was good, and every time of your life, you kind of feel like, oh, it was so much better back then, but it's not.
True.
It's
yeah. But speaking of which, even nostalgia, or even that's Nintendo's bread and butter. I actually had an interesting story with a friend of mine, and then we'll get to you talking about Fast 6 in a second.
God, I want to talk about Fast and Furious.
Okay, one second.
No, I'm just kidding. You talk about what you want to talk about.
Okay, sorry. I was talking to a cousin of mine. She has a smaller, he's another one of my cousins. Second cousin. Small son. Great kid. And he just got a Wii. Lucky kid. And he got the Mario Brothers game, the newest one. And his lovely mother, who is my oldest cousin, was like, "Oh my God, don't you remember, Super Mario Brothers 3 on the Nintendo? And oh my God, I can't even play these games anymore." I'm like, "Carrie, if you picked up the controller, you'd be fine." Go downstairs and blow into the cartridge and put it into your old NES system, because that's what all the other seriously, thinking of nostalgia, it was actually really hilarious. So my little cousin's up there and he's playing Nintendo and playing Mario Brothers, and I'm sitting there being like, "Oh, come on, kid, do this right," oh, what are you doing? And then I go downstairs and my other cousins are literally stacking 2 cartridges on top of each other to play Paperboy in this old NES. And the Christmas before, we were busting out Super Mario Brothers 3, and yes, we got both whistles and went right to World 8. Come on.
Naturally. Why waste time?
But it was really kind of a weird kind of not existential, but interesting, fascinating, wow. So there's an awesome system upstairs that we could totally grab from this kid and totally rock his mind by being like, "Look at us totally destroy everything in this game." Yeah. Just playing in the old system. And that's Nintendo's bread and butter, right? It's a Zelda and a Mario. And
I mean, my Wii is a 25th anniversary Mario Wii. It's red. It came with the game that is essentially the old Mario games put together. So, I'm a sucker for the nostalgia. I won't lie.
I actually need to get a Triforce tattoo, but that's just me. Anyway, don't worry. I won't do it in anywhere revealing. No. So anyway, but speaking of different series and kind of nostalgia and identity, Corey wrote a really, really brilliant essay about. She always writes brilliant things for the Electric Feast. I just write.
Oh, you're too much.
I write emotionally sad things about music, but Corey writes fantastic things about race and gender, and she wrote a great thing about the Fast and Furious movie and why it matters to see multiculturalism on screen. I have issue with the term multiculturalism. I'm in a department that looks at transnational studies, so the idea of multiculturalism erases boundaries and kind of takes away some of the issues that we deal with in the department. So I have no issue, but you know.
Yeah, the way that I kind of look at it is as seeing people who look like you, whatever that may be, particularly when you come from a marginalized group.
Right.
You know, if you're not a, good-looking white male,
thank you.
Yeah, that's how I kind of see it. It's not necessarily even about multiculturalism, whatever that may mean, but essentially what I'm talking about in my article on the Electric Feast is that Fast and Furious, for me, when I was, 15 years old or 16 years old when it first came out, was this crazy aha moment where I finally saw mixed race people on screen. And I grew up in white neighborhoods in Massachusetts and then in Northern California, and didn't really know a lot of people who looked like me or anything like that. And I think, you kind of become like the token black girl, even though, culturally you're not urban, that's what's expected of you, and so seeing these, people on screen who were like, they were ethnically, racially, culturally, everythingly ambiguous was this really, a huge moment for me, and I felt like it contextualized mixed race people in popular culture in a way that usually wasn't done, because mixed race people often aren't in television and film, or they will try to make them, say Shamar Moore on Criminal Minds. He's a mixed race guy, but his family on Criminal Minds are all black. It's just like he's supposed to be, he just came out light skinned or whatever, which happens. But I think for me, it was kind of a life changing sort of thing. And someone asked, why is it so important to see someone who looks like you on TV? And he said, he's a white male, and he said, thank God Superman's white. And, I think when you're not someone who never sees representation of yourself, it's very easy to say that. But you have to realize that, basically white characters are given a very broad bunch of characteristics when they're on TV. They can be any kind of person, really. They could be a geek, they could be popular, they could be, they could be from the ghetto, who knows? Or they can be rich, they can be poor, they can be all kinds of things. Whereas when you see people of color in TV and film, a lot of times they tend to take on very stereotypical roles. And that has something to do with the way that people contextualize others, especially, say, if you come from a white area with no people of color. Where are you getting your ideas of what people of other races are from? You're getting them from a lot of media, along with, whatever your parents believed or books you read or things like that. But largely TV and film are shaping kind of what your expectations are for the people that you interact with. And so to see something like Fast and Furious and see all these mixed race people or ambiguous people on screen, you suddenly think, hey, people are not going to see me as an anomaly as much anymore. They're not going to look at me and try to go, how do I understand you? They'll actually have seen people like me before. And I think with the Cheerios advertisement that just came out, and Mike Wachowski, is that it?
Wachowski,
I don't know.
Mike.
He wrote a great article about, the uproar around the Cheerios ad, and that really just shows to me, in case you don't know, the Cheerios ad came out, racists went crazy because it showed, a mixed race family as if that was normal, and, people were not having that. But I think, stuff like that happens, and you realize that the world has not accepted that we exist. And also I would kind of argue with that whole, I don't see Superman and think, thank God he's white. Try making Superman black and see what happens. Look what happened when people found out that Rue was black in Hunger Games. It was an uproar. Try telling people that Jesus was probably dark skinned. There's a lot of times at which white people get in an uproar because something is not represented as them. So just imagine if you never saw yourself in anything. What that would be like to see this and kind of feel like now you have something to aspire to. And I think Fast and Furious is just so interesting because it also deals with a lot of class issues, these wealthy people of color, and they're not portraying stereotypical roles, and they're, one of them is he borrows money from someone else and he's asked, like, hey, you're a millionaire, why are you borrowing money from me? He's like, that's how you stay a millionaire. It's like things like this that, like, they're not just going out and, like, wasting all their money on, fast cars and stuff while cashing welfare checks. This is so against the stereotype.
By the way.
What's that?
Nice reference to ODB.
Do what I can with what I got.
Yeah.
I love ODB. But yeah, I think Fast and Furious gets a lot of crap for being just like a stupid action franchise or whatever. But for people of color in the United States, I think, it's kind of something bigger than that. And that's very aware of the fact that it's playing with racial stereotypes. It's playing with gender. The women who are like the main characters are fully clothed and, it's a cool thing to see. And there's more about this in the actual article, and you can look it up on the site. But that's kind of my rundown of what's in it.
No, I think you're right about the whole, not spending their money or not being millionaires and also cashing welfare checks. That was the ODB reference I was making because ODB did that on TV, right? But yeah, no, I think that's a good point about the series. And to the point about multiculturalism, I'm not saying that my department is against multiculturalism. But it is problematic, right? So a lot of people, when they think multiculturalism, and again, these are people outside the academy, maybe you, the listener, it can denote multiculturalism as kind of this colorblind world, or the colorless world. And I think the comments, if you look at the article, one of the comments that came through said that, I'm not like, golly gee, thank goodness Superman's white. It's because white's neutral.
Right.
And to say that we live in a multicultural society, to many, it means, we live in an equal society, or we live in a colorblind society. And that's not the case. But, of course, Corrigan, you make a great point. I mean, seeing yourself on screen is so important. When you said you felt like you were a token, the first thing that came to mind was not another teen movie. Where you have a character. Oh, my gosh. If you want to see Chris Evans before he was Captain America, you watch that movie.
Hello, Cellular.
Cellular.
Best movie ever. Yeah. Anyway, no, not another teen
There's
movie.
a character who says, I'm the token black guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I say stuff like bling, 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 and that is whack. Like, so I think that it's very important that you see yourself on screen, you see yourself within society's cultural stereotypes, because there's empowerment. And like you said, there's empowerment, there's things that aren't telling you that you have to do whatever, and not to sound stereotypical, but things like, BET, or says what MTV wants to do, or whatnot.
To be able to have a variety of representations as opposed to one stock representation for your entire race or people, or to just not have one at all. And it's when you interact with people as like a mixed race person, a lot of times people they need to contextualize you. They're like, what are you? Where are you from? Like, they want to know, what are you mostly, and how can I, understand you, and they don't want to know you're half white. They want to know what the other part is. Are you Puerto Rican? Are you black? What, should I assume that you drink Kool-Aid? This is the kind of thing that you get as a mixed race person. And as a person of color, this is, I went to a conference once where they were it was like a student leadership conference. And they were trying to reach, the black student community at the school that had a very small black community. And someone honestly suggested they have a social with fried chicken and mashed potatoes and grits.
Oof.
And as the only person of color in that room, I was like, you kidding me right now? I think everybody loves fried chicken. That's not just a black thing. And that was like, this kind of assumption is, you know, even something as silly as like assuming all black people ate fried chicken or things like that. Like, it basically tells us that we're supposed to be like what, you know, society has, the box that they've put us in.
At least
right?
I will admit, at least they didn't say watermelon in there too.
You know what? It might have come in.
Oh.
Like, and I honestly think that might have actually been part of it. Yeah, and I don't know. So movies like this they kind of give that opportunity to be represented as on a full spectrum the way that people of color often aren't. You know, and I think Vin Diesel and The Rock are such mixed race icons.
Yes.
They kind
Rock.
of have the power to do that.
Every time I see, did you see the Got Milk commercial with The Rock during the Super Bowl?
I remember.
Oh, it was good. It's basically he's making breakfast for these what I assume is like his daughter and his like, you know, their friends, like it's a sleepover, the next day. And he realizes he's trying to make pancakes and he doesn't have any milk. So he's like, oh crap. So he goes outside, but like the world is ending, like alien invasion, meteorites falling. He's like, one second, I'll get right to that. And like he gets to the store, gets the milk, goes back home. And then like an alien's like crawling up his window, he punches it. He's like, all right, you know, like he's like, time to go to work. And it's really cute and funny, and you're like, oh, The Rock, like, I love that guy. Oh, I love him.
Like, I don't know anyone who doesn't like The Rock. It's just, you have to.
The man can sing, the man can dance, the man can put down the people's elbow. I mean, come on, you know?
Yeah, I think that's officially a triple threat.
Yeah.
That's what you got. So, it's so exciting to have someone like him, like, who is very ambiguous and stuff like that, to be so widely accepted and to get all these different kinds of roles, you know, that he's not boxed in. And, you know, one of the interesting things, Vin Diesel, early in his career created a video short called Multifacial. I linked to it in the article. You can watch it on YouTube. Mm-hmm. That's basically about the plight of actors in Hollywood who aren't one race, you know, and can't be easily, you know, categorized as one thing. And so when they go into auditions, they're like, you're too light, you're too dark, can you be Italian, do you speak Spanish, like, you know, all these kinds of issues that people face, you know, because casting directors in Hollywood only want people who fit into the readily accepted societal mold for race and gender, and those things are totally blasted out of the water in Fast and Furious, and in Fast 6, I think, especially. So go see it. Honestly, it's so much fun, and I think, you know, it's kind of educational, and you can see why people like me would be super thrilled by it.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. And you know what? Also, Vin Diesel, nerd.
Big time.
Big time nerd.
Everything.
So there's a reason there. Apparently, again, just going back to my family for a second, apparently a cousin of mine met Vin Diesel in a nightclub in the 90s. He was a bouncer in New York City. So,
awesome.
That was like pre-Triple X even.
Man, I love Triple X.
Oh, classic Vin Diesel.
Even the sound.
I say that now and it sounds painful, but, you know, classic Diesel.
True. Yeah, he's kind of a boss as well, and I think it's cool that he kind of made that short and demonstrated what it's like. I know a few mixed race people and people of color and whatnot in Hollywood who have a hard time when they go on auditions because, you know, the casting director wants one thing and they aren't. You know, I know a lot of Asian people and so forth who are trying to make it, and, you know, it's a difficult thing. So, Fast 6.
Go see it.
Seal of approval.
Corrigan seal of approval, which is tenurable in most major banks, which is good. Yeah. And I mean, I haven't been watching a lot of movies, but I've been listening to a lot of music lately. A lot of rock and roll. I actually really amazed since the last podcast, I actually amazed some family members by rapping the Scenario by the Tribe Called Quest. So white boy rapping that at a bowling alley. That's
nice.
Yeah.
My brother would be impressed by that.
Yeah.
My brother, who, by the way, created the loop that we use in our show, Doc Vapors. Check him out.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet. Pretty cool guy. So,
okay.
But yeah, I guess that's all for today. We've talked for a good time.
Yes.
Time.
Yes. Sorry about that, everybody. If we get going,
Yeah.
you know, you can't stop it. But go read the articles. There's a lot of good stuff. E3, and there'll be more as the week continues. Some photo galleries. I've been taking a lot of pics, and we've got some good coverage, and a lot of awesome gamers at the site are writing some good stuff about it. So make sure that you look at that. Read Sean's article on nostalgia. Read mine about Fast and Furious, and go see the movie.
And there's going to be some great music reviews up this week. There's going to be some interesting music pieces. There's a great piece on David Bowie as a Time Lord. Is he a Time Lord or isn't he a Time Lord?
I'm convinced. That article convinced me.
So, things to think about. Anyway, this is Sean Ahern signing off.
Yeah, and this is Corrigan Vaughn. You've been listening to Pop Goes the Academy.
On the
See
electric.
you next time.
Take it easy. Bye.
This is the Electric Feast.